I discovered a concealed phone belonging to my wife, and the text messages on it revealed that she was unfaithful to me with none other than my own brother. Shocked and hurt, I confided in my sister-in-law about this betrayal. However, my family reacted with intense anger and insisted that I keep quiet to protect my brother's reputation. Allow me to introduce my half-brother, Jerry, who is 35 years old. Jerry entered our lives when my father was still married to his ex-wife. They had Jerry when he was just 6 months old, but my father decided to leave his ex-wife shortly after, citing incompatibility as the reason for their divorce. Despite the separation, my father remained actively involved in Jerry's upbringing, sharing custody with his ex-wife. 2 years following the divorce, my father met my mother, and they quickly fell in love. Their romance seemed like something out of a fairy tale. My mother often recounts how my father first saw her from outside a coffee shop, and it was love at first sight for him. He mustered the courage to enter the shop and ask her out. After dating for a few months, he proposed, and she immediately accepted, believing he was her soulmate and that they were destined to be together. Everything seemed perfect initially. Unfortunately, about a year into their marriage, my father confessed to my mother that he had cheated on her with a co-worker. Overwhelmed with guilt, he admitted his mistake, and my mother chose to forgive him. They sought marriage counseling and managed to mend their relationship. My mother was convinced that having a child would help resolve their issues, which led to my birth. While my mother views their love story as deeply romantic, I see it differently. To me, my parents are far from the perfect couple they present to the outside world. They exhibit a lot of dysfunction behind the scenes, contradicting the flawless image they strive to maintain. Maintaining appearances is incredibly important to them. Even during my childhood, they would act like they were passionately in love whenever guests visited. They received praise for keeping the romance alive despite being married for many years, but in reality, they were just an ordinary couple who didn't show constant affection at home. They weren't living in a perpetual honeymoon phase as they pretended. It was all an act to appear as the ideal couple. This facade only became clear to me as I grew older. The pressure to seem perfect extended to me as well, forcing me to enroll in numerous classes to excel in everything I did. My childhood was filled with constant busyness, leaving little time for relaxation. It wasn't until high school that I began to rebel, and my family allowed me to spend some time unwinding at home. My father was determined to ensure that both Jerry and I were top students, excelling academically and in extracurricular activities. As a result, Jerry gained admission to one of the country's most prestigious medical schools, and I secured a place at an Ivy League institution to pursue a business degree. The immense pressure to succeed undoubtedly contributed to our current achievements, and while I wouldn't recommend this path to other parents, I consider myself fortunate that it worked out for me. However, my father also believed he had the right to control our personal lives. My mother never opposed him, always agreeing with whatever he decided. When Jerry turned 30, my father insisted that he should start seeking a partner to marry and settle down with, warning that his options would soon dwindle. At that time, Jerry was dating Tina, who was 34 years old. When my father approached Jerry with this conversation, they had been in an on and off relationship for nearly 5 years. They had known each other for a long time, and my father was aware of their history. After their talk, Jerry decided to commit seriously to Tina. Within a year, he proposed, and they got married 3 years ago. Last year, they welcomed a baby into their family. Jerry and I aren't particularly close, so I learned about his marriage and child from our father during a similar conversation he had with me earlier this year. He encouraged me to take my own life seriously and start a family. He even boasted about convincing Jerry to marry Tina, expressing how happy he was with his wife and son and wanting the same for me. Unbeknownst to him, his plans were about to unravel dramatically. Later, my father brought up his own affair that occurred before I was born, explaining that he had felt unfulfilled at the time but remained committed to my mother. He believed that having a child had grounded him and recommended the same path for me. I took his advice with skepticism, determined not to let my father dictate my relationship choices. Fortunately, I had already been planning to propose to my girlfriend, Carla, a 30-year-old woman I had been with for 3 years and living with for 2. 2 months after speaking with my father, I proposed to Carla on my birthday, and she accepted. We got married 3 months ago, and everything seemed to be going well, until it wasn't. Despite Carla and I being married for only 2 months, I found myself filing for divorce just a week ago after discovering she had been unfaithful with Jerry since our engagement. The revelation was a massive shock, and I wouldn't have uncovered it if I hadn't stumbled upon her burner phone by accident. I couldn't locate a piece of my clothing, so I searched the entire house. Carla was out at the time, so I decided to go through her clothes, hoping to find the missing item. While rummaging through her clothes, I discovered something in the pocket of a particular pair of jeans, another phone. Fortunately, it wasn't password protected, and there was only one text thread on it. The phone number seemed familiar, and to my horror, it was Jerry's number. I was devastated as I scrolled through the messages, which began about 3 weeks after I proposed to Carla. The texts were filled with flirtatious exchanges reminiscent of teenagers. They admitted their love for each other a few months into our engagement and made promises to remain faithful to their respective partners until my nephew turned 5, believing he wouldn't need his mother as much then. Eventually, both Carla and Jerry filed for divorce and confessed their affair to me and Tina. Jerry sought shared custody of his son so they could be together. Reading through their plans, I was horrified to realize they had orchestrated this deception for 5 years. It was madness, and I immediately began packing to leave the house. Knowing Carla would be out late with friends, I took the opportunity to gather my belongings, captured screenshots of the incriminating messages, and drove to a nearby hotel. I didn't leave any messages for her, simply placing the burner phone on our bed, confident she would understand the implication. My stomach churned with disgust because, despite never being close, I now knew that Jerry had made a move on Carla the very night I proposed. During my birthday party, while I was mingling with guests, Carla had been conspicuously absent. I initially thought she had gone to freshen up her makeup, but the texts revealed that she and Jerry had been making out in our backyard while I was distracted. In response to this betrayal, I contacted my lawyer that evening to initiate divorce proceedings. My main concern was to ensure that Carla wouldn't receive any alimony or settlements, as I was in a high-paying position and knew she might try to exploit that. Reading the texts, I even noticed Carla's condescending remarks about my profession, expressing a preference for being with a doctor rather than someone she described as a glorified accountant. For context, I run my own business alongside 2 business school friends, handling finances, and we're doing quite well. I couldn't fathom why she would disparage us when she herself was employed in the corporate sector. Her materialistic nature was always apparent, but this was just heartbreaking. The messages also revealed that both she and Jerry had mocked me behind my back, fueling my hatred for Jerry. I knew that eventually, I would confront Tina, informing her that she was married to a deceitful cheater who left her. Building up the courage to do so was challenging, especially as I was in a dark place emotionally. I promptly blocked both Carla and Jerry to prevent any further manipulations or excuses from their side. 2 days after moving into the hotel, I anticipated that either Carla or Jerry might apologize, hoping for leniency. Instead, on the 3rd day, my father called. He began by mentioning that he had heard about the affair since Carla discovered I knew the truth. Because I had left the burner phone on the bed, Carla had reached out to Jerry to discuss the situation, as she couldn't reach me and Jerry couldn't either. Ultimately, Jerry contacted my father, who then reached out to me. My father expressed his sorrow over what had happened and felt genuinely bad for my predicament. He requested that I keep this matter to myself for the time being. I suspected he had ulterior motives, so I decided to record our conversation. He revealed that he had spoken with Jerry, and both of them feared that I would inform Tina about the affair. They insisted that neither he nor my mother wanted me to disclose the truth to Tina. According to them, Jerry needed to consider their child and that revealing the affair would devastate his life. Tina came from a well-connected family, and they believed she would leverage her influence to secure the most favorable custody arrangement, making it difficult for Jerry to accept shared custody. Through my father, they urged me to remain silent and not tell Tina the truth. They claimed to have convinced Jerry to cease seeing Carla and suggested that I could do the same, just as my parents had managed to preserve their marriage despite past mistakes. They expected me to forgive Carla and Jerry for their indiscretions and pretend as if nothing had happened to maintain the facade of a harmonious family. I found their request audacious and couldn't fathom why they would expect me to comply, especially after they had betrayed me. Enraged, I ended the call immediately, refusing to engage further or respond. Their constant concern with appearances was a facade, and this situation was beyond their control. It was clear that they expected me to remain silent to protect Jerry's reputation, despite his actions. Frustrated by their audacity, I decided to retaliate by texting Tina in anger. I detailed everything I knew, including the fact that Jerry had asked my father to instruct me to keep the affair a secret. I attached the screenshots of the messages from the burner phone and then turned off my phone to avoid any immediate responses or attempts to reach out. Hours later, when I felt it was appropriate, I turned my phone back on to find it inundated with messages and missed calls from my family. While everyone was furious with me, my primary concern was Tina's reaction. The first message I checked was from her. She didn't say much, simply thanking me for telling her the truth and indicating she knew what to do next, which felt ominous. As I read more messages, I learned that Tina and Jerry had a massive fight after I sent her the message. Tina left to live with her parents and their son following the altercation. It also became clear that divorce was imminent for them, and Tina might seek full custody of their child, which would be detrimental to Jerry, as she would likely fight to minimize his time with his son. My family, instead of supporting me, blamed me for the fallout. If they had wanted to prevent this, they should have addressed Jerry's behavior earlier. Instead, the responsibility lay solely on Jerry, and yet they held me accountable. Over the past few days, I've received numerous angry messages from my family, accusing me of ruining a happy family. This accusation baffled me because if their family had truly been happy, Jerry wouldn't have cheated. Nevertheless, I stood firm in my conviction that I was in the right. Despite hearing that Jerry was now miserable and facing potential custody issues with Carla and me, I didn't feel bad. I wasn't going to let Carla's infidelity define my happiness. I blocked everyone to avoid the relentless negativity and only unblocked Carla since the divorce proceedings were imminent. However, she was using this time to reach out, trying to explain her actions and apologize for cheating. Her attempts were futile because, in my mind, her betrayal validated my decision to end the marriage. I couldn't imagine spending a year or more married to someone only to discover her ongoing infidelity, or worse, staying together for 5 years before uncovering the truth. I was trying to view this situation positively, recognizing that Carla was never the right person for me. Someone who would marry me and then cheat with my half-brother could never be my soulmate. Realizing I was wrong about her was a relief. As I continued to stay at the hotel, evading my family's attempts to locate me, I felt a mixture of loneliness and determination. The only person who could still reach me was Carla, but her constant texts were becoming overwhelming. She had scheduled our first meeting with a court-appointed mediator for the upcoming week. Although she wasn't contesting the divorce, her frequent messages suggested lingering feelings or unresolved issues. Initially, she limited herself to 2 texts a day, but recently, she was contacting me almost hourly. I hadn't opened her chats because I lacked the emotional energy to engage with her anymore. Eventually, I decided to check her messages, suspecting they might contain something important. In just 2 hours after deciding to read her texts, I discovered that Carla had ended her affair with Jerry. She had a recent conversation with him and realized that his feelings were purely physical, and the promises he made were insincere. Disappointed, she apologized for everything and stated that she wouldn't contest the divorce or seek any settlements or alimony, acknowledging that she didn't deserve any. This development meant that I wouldn't have to endure a lengthy legal battle, and I was relieved that I had uncovered the truth. I forwarded all the incriminating texts to my lawyer and saved them as evidence for potential future use. A few days later, my father and Jerry managed to locate me by searching every hotel in the city, eventually finding my car parked at the hotel. Despite my instructions to the hotel staff to keep my location confidential, they were lying about my absence. My father and Jerry erupted in anger in the hotel lobby, shouting profanities at the receptionists. The situation escalated to the point where hotel security had to escort them outside, and I was called down to address the chaos. Confused about their intentions, I learned that they had devised a plan for me to testify against Tina in court. They wanted me to paint her as an unstable wife and mother, claiming that Jerry cheated on her, thereby securing full custody for him. They believed that Tina had numerous complaints against Jerry, including neglecting his responsibilities as a father and household chores, and now, with her affair, his reputation was further tarnished. Their proposal made no sense to me, especially after they had betrayed my trust. I refused to participate in their scheme, expressing that they meant nothing to me and that I had no obligation to make amends for their actions. I walked away, instructing security to remove them from the hotel premises, citing their dangerous behavior. They were kicked out without any repercussions because the hotel didn't want negative publicity, though they avoided calling the police to prevent further embarrassment. 2 days after the confrontation, I hadn't heard back from my father and Jerry. Meanwhile, Carla had been increasingly persistent in her attempts to communicate. We had set a date for our first meeting with a court-appointed mediator, scheduled for the following week. Although she wasn't contesting the divorce, her frequent messages suggested lingering emotions or a desire to resolve things amicably. I hadn't opened her chats because dealing with the ongoing drama was exhausting, but I knew I needed to address it eventually. As time passed, I decided to review Carla's messages and discovered that she had indeed ended her affair with Jerry. Their recent discussion revealed that she realized Jerry's feelings were solely physical and that his promises were empty. She expressed deep regret for everything that had transpired and assured me that she wouldn't fight the divorce or seek any financial settlements because she acknowledged she didn't deserve any. This resolution simplified the divorce process, allowing me to move forward without the burden of a prolonged legal battle. I forwarded these messages to my lawyer and saved them as evidence, further solidifying my position. Months have since passed since I last updated this situation. The divorce process concluded more swiftly than anticipated, thanks to a 90-day waiting period in our state. The proceedings were straightforward. Carla was granted the right to keep personal belongings she had purchased, while I retained ownership of the house. I moved back in, and Carla kept her car. Given our short marriage, our finances remained separate. Meanwhile, Jerry and Tina are entangled in their own divorce, with custody battles becoming increasingly bitter. It's unfortunate for my nephew, but Tina has informed me that I'm allowed to see him, which is a significant victory for me. I adore the little boy and hope to have a child of my own someday, though it likely won't be with Carla. Currently, I'm focused on rebuilding my life, and things are progressing well. I'm striving to move past the turmoil and establish a sense of normalcy. My primary goal is to ensure that I maintain a peaceful existence free from the drama that once consumed me. With the divorce finalized and my relationship with Carla officially over, I'm optimistic about the future. I plan to continue growing my business, nurturing my personal relationships, and ultimately finding happiness once again. Despite the chaos and betrayal I endured, I'm determined to move forward and create a fulfilling life for myself, leaving behind the shadows of the past.